The crystal chandelier reflected thousands of tiny rainbows across the pristine white tablecloths of Bellissimo, Milan's most exclusive restaurant. I nervously smoothed down my black cocktail dress, the only designer piece I owned, purchased second-hand for occasions I rarely experienced. The weight of eyes followed me as I weaved between tables, feeling desperately out of place among Milan's elite. "Your table, Signorina Ellis." The maître d' pulled out my chair with practiced elegance. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice smaller than intended. 26 years old and still shrinking myself in unfamiliar spaces. I checked my phone again. Daniel was 15 minutes late. My stomach clenched with anxiety. This dinner would drain half my month's salary as a junior curator at the small art gallery downtown. A celebratory splurge to mark our 1-year anniversary and the end of Daniel's probation period at his investment firm. The waiter approached with practiced deference. "Would Signorina like to order drinks while waiting?" "Just water for now, please. I couldn't afford to order wine alone." As I waited, I observed the other diners. Wealthy couples speaking in hushed tones, business meetings concluding with handshakes worth millions, old money families maintaining traditions. I didn't belong here, but Daniel insisted. "Connections matter, Sophie," he'd said. "People need to see us in these places." My attention drifted to a secluded corner table, where 3 men sat in tailored suits. 2 faced outward, scanning the room with calculated vigilance. But it was the 3rd man who caught my eye. His back to the restaurant, yet commanding the space through his posture alone. Dark hair cut precisely, broad shoulders beneath an impeccably tailored jacket. One of his companions whispered something, and the man turned slightly. His profile was devastating. Strong jawline, straight nose, lips pressed into contemplation. I couldn't look away, mesmerized by the gravity he seemed to possess. Then, as if sensing my attention, he began to turn. I quickly averted my eyes, heart racing inexplicably. The waiter's return broke the moment, placing my water down with unnecessary flourish. "Signorina, may I suggest the special—" "She'll wait for me to order." Daniel's voice cut through as he slid into the seat opposite mine, 30 minutes late, and without apology. "Daniel?" I smiled with relief. I was getting worried. "Traffic. This city is impossible." He didn't meet my eyes, immediately scanning the wine list. "We'll have the 2015 Barbaresco," he told the waiter without consulting me. I noticed a smudge of something pink on his collar. Lipstick, poorly concealed. My heart plummeted, but I said nothing. Not here. Not tonight. I'd confronted him before about the late nights and mysterious texts. Each time his explanations grew more elaborate, his irritation more pronounced. "You look nice," he finally said, assessing me with the same critical eye he used for potential investments. "Thank you. Happy anniversary." I pushed a small wrapped package across the table. "Right, yes." He patted his jacket pockets. "I've got yours in the car. Forgot with the rush." The lie hung between us. I nodded, swallowing my disappointment. We ordered. Daniel selecting the most expensive dishes without hesitation. I chose the cheapest pasta on the menu, anxiety mounting about the bill. While he talked about his promotion prospects, my attention kept drifting to the mysterious man in the corner. Something about his presence felt magnetic, dangerous. "Sophie?" Daniel's sharp tone jerked me back. "Sorry, what were you saying?" "I asked if you'd spoken to your father about the investment opportunity." I tensed. "No, I told you. My father's pension isn't for your startup ideas." Daniel's expression hardened. "Your father trusts me, and 50,000 euros would barely dent his retirement fund." "The answer is no," I said firmly. "He worked 30 years for that money." Daniel's smile tightened. "We'll discuss it later." He excused himself to take a call, leaving me alone again. While he was gone, I noticed a commotion at the restaurant entrance. A woman in a red dress argued with the maître d', her voice rising until heads turned. "I know he's here. You can't keep me out," she shouted in Italian-accented English. Security approached, but before they reached her, she spotted Daniel returning from his call. Her expression transformed. "Daniel, tell them who I am," she demanded. The restaurant fell silent. Daniel froze, color draining from his face. "Alessandra, this isn't—" he started. "Don't Alessandra me. 3 months you've been promising to leave her." She pointed directly at me, her mascara smudged with tears. "Does she know about Milan? About us?" My entire body went cold. Daniel had been in Milan on business just last week. The woman stormed toward our table while security followed. "Do you know he's been using your father's identity to secure loans, that he's in debt to—" "Enough!" Daniel grabbed her arm. "You're making a scene. Let go of me." She yanked away, knocking into a passing server. A tray of drinks tumbled, glass shattering across the marble floor. In the chaos, I stood, knees weak. Daniel's betrayal wasn't just romantic. He'd been planning to scam my father. The room spun as pieces connected. His interest in my father's finances, his insistence on accessing his accounts to help manage retirement planning. As security escorted the woman out, Daniel returned, straightening his tie with manufactured composure. "Crazy ex-client," he explained loudly for nearby tables. "Got rejected for a loan. Been stalking me since. She knows about my father," I whispered. "She's delusional. I'll explain everything later." "No." I gathered my purse, shaking. "I need air. Sophie, don't make another scene." "Another scene? You brought your mistress to our anniversary dinner? Lower your voice," he hissed. "People are watching." And they were. The entire restaurant witnessed my humiliation. As tears threatened, I turned to leave, only to collide with a waiter carrying our first course. The plate crashed against my chest, red sauce splattering across my dress. "I'm so sorry, signorina," the waiter exclaimed. Mortified, I rushed toward the restrooms, vision blurring. In my haste, I took a wrong turn into a private hallway. Disoriented and desperate to escape, I pushed through a door into what appeared to be a private dining area. I froze. The 3 men from the corner table were there, standing over maps and papers quickly being gathered by the 2 watchful ones. But it was the 3rd man, the one whose presence I'd felt across the room, who now stared directly at me, dark eyes capturing mine with an intensity that stole my breath. Time suspended as we locked eyes. He was younger than I'd thought, perhaps early 30s, with features that belonged on Renaissance paintings. But it was the power radiating from him that held me immobile, an aura of absolute authority. Something dangerous flickered in his expression as he assessed me, standing pathetic and sauce-stained in the doorway. "I'm so sorry," I stammered. "Wrong door." One of the men reached inside his jacket, but the leader raised his hand slightly, a minimal gesture that instantly halted whatever was about to happen. "La ragazza sta piangendo," he said, his voice deep, accent thick. "The girl is crying." I backed away, bumping into someone behind me. I turned to find Daniel. "There you are," he said, gripping my arm painfully. "Excuse us, gentlemen. My girlfriend is disoriented." The leader's eyes narrowed, shifting from me to Daniel, then to Daniel's grip on my arm. Something cold and calculating transformed his expression. "Remove your hand from her," he said, each word precisely enunciated in accented English. Daniel's fingers tightened reflexively before he realized who he was addressing. His face paled. "Mr. Russo, I apologize for the interruption," Daniel said, recognition and fear flooding his features as he released me. "We were just leaving." The man, Russo, tilted his head slightly, studying Daniel with growing interest. "You know me?" Daniel swallowed visibly. "By reputation only, sir." A dangerous smile touched Russo's lips. "And yet I do not know you, an imbalance I find concerning." One of the other men whispered something in Italian. Russo nodded without taking his eyes off us. "It seems we have mutual acquaintances," Russo continued. "You work for Bianchi at Milan Financial." "Yes, sir," Daniel confirmed, sweat beading on his forehead. "You should attend to your girlfriend," Russo said, his eyes returning to me with an intensity that made my skin flush despite my distress. "She deserves better care." The dismissal was clear. Daniel pulled me back through the door, his fingers digging into my arm. "Do you have any idea who that was?" he hissed once we were in the corridor. "Let go of me," I demanded, pulling free. "That was Alessandro Russo. He owns half of northern Italy's imports. The other half, no one talks about." Daniel's voice shook, And you just walked in on what was clearly a private meeting. I need to leave, I said, heading toward the exit. Don't follow me. Sophie, wait, he grabbed my wrist. You can't just walk out. Watch me. I pulled away. You're not thinking clearly. Let me explain about Alessandra. And my father? Will you explain how you plan to steal his pension too? A flash of anger crossed Daniel's face, his charming mask slipping. You ungrateful. He stopped abruptly, looking over my shoulder. I turned to find one of Russo's men standing there, expression impassive. Mr. Russo requests the lady return, he stated flatly. Daniel's face drained of color. There's been a misunderstanding. We're leaving. Only the lady, the man clarified, his tone leaving no room for argument. Fear and confusion battled within me. Return to the mysterious Russo or leave with Daniel, whose betrayal still burned fresh. I'll be fine, I told Daniel, making my decision. Something told me Russo was dangerous, but Daniel had proven himself the immediate threat. As the man escorted me back, Daniel called after me. Sophie, don't be stupid. You don't know what you're doing, but for the first time that night, I felt I was making the right choice. The man guided me down a different corridor, away from the main restaurant. My heart hammered against my ribs. Adrenaline from confronting Daniel mixing with apprehension about where I was being led. We passed through a hidden doorway concealed behind a wine rack, emerging into a plushly decorated office. Alessandro Russo sat behind an imposing mahogany desk, alone now, jacket removed and sleeves rolled precisely to his elbows, revealing strong forearms and an expensive watch. The room smelled of leather, subtle cologne, and power. His dark eyes studied me with unsettling intensity. Sit. He gestured to the chair opposite him, not a request, a command. I remained standing, suddenly aware of my vulnerability. Why am I here? A hint of approval flickered across his face at my defiance. You're covered in marinara sauce, crying, and about to leave with a man who clearly intended to harm you in some way. I'm offering an alternative. His English was excellent, the Italian accent adding weight to each word, rather than hindering understanding. I don't need saving, I said, though my trembling voice betrayed me. Everyone needs saving at least once. He replied, leaning back. Your boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend. I corrected automatically. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Your ex-boyfriend. He works for Carlo Bianchi. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. And you are? Sophie Ellis. American? My father is. I was raised mostly in London after my mother died. He processed this information with a slight nod. You're aware of what Bianchi does beyond his banking facade? Yes, I shook my head. Daniel had always been vague about his work, emphasizing only the prestige and connections. Alessandro studied me for a long moment. Interesting. He pushed a box of tissues across the desk. You should clean up, Sophie Ellis. I took a tissue, suddenly remembering the sauce staining my dress. This was my only good dress, I said, more to myself than to him. It wasn't particularly good, he replied bluntly. Too simple for this restaurant. I should have been offended, but exhaustion was replacing adrenaline. I sank into the chair. Why did you call me back here? He reached for a crystal decanter, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. Your boyfriend has been stealing from Carlo Bianchi. Not a wise choice of victim. My blood ran cold. What? More relevantly, he's been using your father's identity to secure the loans. He slid a glass toward me. Drink. You look like you might faint. I ignored the glass. How do you know this? I know everything that happens in Milan. He said it not as a boast, but as simple fact. Bianchi is not known for forgiveness. When he discovers the theft, and he will, he'll look for repayment from anyone connected to your boyfriend, including your father. The room tilted. Daniel hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He'd placed my father in danger. I need to warn him. I reached for my phone. That won't help, Alessandro said calmly. The damage is done. Bianchi's men are thorough. Then what am I supposed to do? Panic edged my voice. Alessandro took a measured sip from his glass. I could make the problem disappear. Why would you do that? You don't know me. His eyes locked onto mine, something possessive flickering in their depths. Let's say I dislike seeing innocents pay for others' mistakes. And what would you want in return? Nothing came free from men like him. I understood that instinctively. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Smart girl. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. I want information. I don't know anything. Not yet. But you will return to your job, your life, as if nothing has changed. You will occasionally share what you learn about Bianchi's operations through your ex-boyfriend's connections. Simple. I laughed humorlessly. You want me to spy for you? I'm a curator at a small gallery. I know nothing about whatever world this is. Precisely why you're perfect. No one would suspect. He studied me intently, unless you'd prefer I let events unfold naturally, with your father bearing the consequences. The threat was velvet-wrapped but unmistakable. I swallowed hard, buying time by finally reaching for the glass. The liquid burned my throat, warming my chest. What exactly would I need to do? For now? Nothing. Return to your life. Forgive your boyfriend. Forgive him? I nearly choked. Temporarily. Information flows more freely from a man who believes he's been forgiven. His expression darkened. Though, if I see another mark on your arm from his grip, our arrangement changes. The proprietary way he said it sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. This man was dangerous in ways Daniel could never be. More controlled. More calculating. And my father will be safe? You have my word. Which, unlike your boyfriend's, means something. I sensed this was true. Alessandro Russo might be dangerous. But he didn't seem dishonest. Why are you really helping me? I asked. His eyes traveled over my face, lingering on my lips before returning to my eyes. Perhaps I see something worth preserving. The intensity of his gaze made heat rise to my cheeks. I looked away first, unnerved by my body's response to him. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. My driver will take you home. That's not necessary. It wasn't a suggestion. He pressed a button on his desk, and the door opened immediately. Enzo will ensure you arrive safely. We'll be in touch, Sophie Ellis. The way he said my name, like he was claiming it, made my breath catch. Outside, a sleek black Mercedes waited. The driver, Enzo, held the door without speaking. As I slid into the butter-soft leather seat, I gave my address without thinking, too overwhelmed to question how I'd gone from anniversary dinner to this surreal arrangement in one evening. As the car pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Daniel arguing with the restaurant manager near the entrance. His eyes widened when he saw me in the luxury vehicle. I turned away as Enzo accelerated, leaving Daniel and the remnants of our relationship behind. I woke to insistent knocking the next morning. Groggily opening my apartment door, I found a delivery man holding a large box. Signorina Ellis. Yes? Sign here, please. Inside the box lay a dress. Emerald green silk that probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. The note attached read simply, "Replace what was ruined. A.R." I should have returned it immediately. Instead, I ran my fingers over the exquisite fabric, something forbidden stirring within me. My phone had accumulated 17 missed calls and 29 messages from Daniel overnight. I ignored them all, focusing instead on calling my father. "Pumpkin, how was the anniversary dinner?" his cheerful voice answered. "Dad, we need to talk about your finances," I said, bypassing pleasantries. "Has Daniel been helping you with anything? Just some investment advice?" "Why?" My stomach twisted. "Has he asked you to sign anything, or for access to your accounts?" "Well, he mentioned setting up a trust. Said it would protect my assets. We have an appointment next week to sign the paperwork." His voice turned concerned. "Sophie, what's going on? Cancel it. Don't sign anything." I took a breath, deciding how much to reveal. Daniel and I broke up. I've learned he's been dishonest about financial matters. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" "I'm fine, Dad. Just promise me you won't talk to him if he contacts you." After reassuring my father and extracting his promise, I sat staring at the green dress. Alessandro Russo was now entangled in my life, whether I wanted it or not. The smart choice would be to run, pack my belongings, and disappear before I was pulled deeper into whatever dangerous game existed between him and Bianchi. But where would I go? How would I protect my father? And why did part of me, a part I didn't recognize, feel a thrill at the thought of seeing Alessandro again? The doorbell interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I opened it to find two imposing men in suits. "Miss Ellis? Mr. Bianchi would like to speak with you." Ice flooded my veins. How did they find me so quickly? I'm not dressed," I stammered, trying to close the door. A foot blocked it. "That's not a problem. You can dress while we wait." They entered my apartment without invitation, scanning the modest space with thinly veiled contempt. I retreated to my bedroom, hands shaking as I pulled on jeans and a sweater. Through the thin walls, I heard one of them reporting my location over the phone. I needed help. Alessandro had promised protection, but I had no way to contact him. As I emerged from the bedroom, phone clutched in my hand, the men stood. "We're running late, Miss Ellis. Where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Bianchi has questions about your boyfriend's activities." The implication was clear. I was being taken to face a man Alessandro had described as unforgiving. As we approached their car, a black Mercedes screeched to a halt beside us. The window lowered to reveal Enzo, Alessandro's driver. "Miss Ellis," he called. "Mr. Russo is waiting." The two men stiffened. "She has an appointment with Mr. Bianchi." "Mr. Russo insists," Enzo replied, his tone making clear it wasn't a request. A tense standoff followed, broken when another car approached. The tension among the men shifted palpably as a third party entered the equation. Seizing the momentary distraction, I broke free and dashed to Enzo's car, sliding into the back seat. He accelerated immediately, leaving Bianchi's men shouting behind us. "Are you hurt?" Enzo asked, eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. "No," I managed, heart racing. "How did you know?" "Mr. Russo has been monitoring your apartment since last night." He handed back a phone. "He wants to speak with you." I took it with trembling fingers. "Hello?" I told you to continue normally. Alessandro's voice was controlled, but held an edge of anger. That did not include entertaining Bianchi's men. "I didn't invite them. They just showed up." A moment of silence. "Where is your father?" "At home in London. I warned him about Daniel." "Not good enough. Enzo will take you to collect personal items, then to the airport. You'll bring your father to Milan where I can ensure his safety." "I can't just—" "You can and will," he interrupted. "Unless you prefer Bianchi's hospitality for both of you." I closed my eyes, sensing the walls of my normal life collapsing around me. "Fine. Good. One more thing, Sophie." His voice lowered. "The green suits you. Wear it when you arrive." The line went dead before I could ask how he knew I'd tried on the dress. The implication that I was being watched sent conflicting waves of alarm and something darker, more thrilling through me. Back at my apartment, I packed quickly, sliding the green dress into my suitcase last. As Enzo drove me to the airport, I stared at the city passing by, wondering if I would ever return to the life I'd known. "Your father will be protected," Enzo said unexpectedly as we approached the terminal. "Mr. Russo honors his agreements." Why is he doing this? The truth. Enzo's eyes met mine in the mirror. "In 20 years, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you last night. That's impossible. He doesn't know me." "Mr. Russo trusts his instincts," Enzo replied simply. "They've kept him alive." He handed me an envelope containing a first-class ticket to London and a black credit card. "For expenses. The return tickets will be arranged once you've secured your father." As I exited the car, a final, chilling thought occurred to me. "Enzo, what happens to Daniel?" The driver's expression remained impassive. "That's not your concern anymore." I boarded the plane with the sickening certainty that I had just traded one cage for another, albeit a gilded one. And worse, some traitorous part of me was already anticipating seeing Alessandro again, drawn to his dangerous gravity like a moth to destructive flame. The flight to London passed in a blur of anxiety and conflicting emotions. I'd called my father from the airport, fabricating a story about a sudden opportunity to bring him to Milan to see a private collection at my gallery. He'd sounded delighted, completely unaware that his daughter had become entangled with what I was increasingly certain was the Italian Mafia. My childhood home in Hampstead looked exactly as it always had, modest but well-maintained, with my mother's roses still thriving in the front garden 17 years after her death. Dad had never changed a thing. His loyalty to her memory was something Daniel had exploited, I realize now, using my father's lingering grief as a vulnerability, positioning himself as the supportive son-in-law figure my father had always wanted. Sophie. Dad engulfed me in a bear hug as I stepped through the door. At 63, Martin Ellis remained robust, his academics life keeping him mentally sharp even as silver dominated his once brown hair. This is such a wonderful surprise. I've already packed, perhaps too much. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Dad, there's something I need to tell you. We sat at the kitchen table where he'd comforted me through teenage heartbreaks, helped with homework, and later, mourned my broken engagement 2 years before Daniel. I'd always been honest with him. Until now. You're scaring me, Pumpkin, he said, his smile fading as he studied my face. I took a deep breath. Daniel was planning to steal your pension. His eyebrows shot up. What? He's been using your identity to secure loans from his employer. Dangerous people are looking for repayment. I couldn't bring myself to explain exactly who these people were. We need to leave London until it's resolved. To his credit, my father asked the essential questions. How I knew who was involved. What exactly was at risk, but he didn't doubt me for a moment. When I finished my heavily edited explanation, he nodded once. I always thought there was something off about him. Too polished. He reached for my hand. But why Milan? Shouldn't we go somewhere they wouldn't look? I have a friend who can help. The word friend felt wholly inadequate for what Alessandro Russo was becoming in my life. He's promised protection. Dad studied me carefully. This friend. Do you trust him? Did I? Alessandro was dangerous, manipulative, and clearly involved in criminal activities. Yet something in me recognized he would honor his word. Yes, I answered finally. I trust him to do exactly what he promises. Dad nodded. Years of parenting allowing him to read between the lines. Then I'll pack lighter. Sounds like we might be staying a while. The return flight to Milan featured the disorienting experience of traveling first class, something neither of us had ever done. My father drifted between excitement about the unexpected adventure and concern about the circumstances forcing our hand. As we exited customs at Malpensa Airport, I spotted Enzo immediately, holding a discreet sign reading simply, Ellis. My father raised an eyebrow at the imposing driver and the gleaming Mercedes waiting curbside. Your friend must be quite successful, he murmured. Remember what I said, Dad, I whispered as we approached. Don't ask too many questions, and follow my lead. Enzo greeted us with formal courtesy, taking our bags and opening the car door. Mr. Russo is expecting you at the estate. Estate? My father mouthed silently to me as we settled into the leather seats. I shook my head slightly, warning him to stay quiet. We drove north out of Milan, the cityscape gradually yielding to the lush landscapes of Lombardy. After an hour, we turned onto a private road winding through immaculate grounds. Security checkpoints appeared with increasing frequency, each manned by guards who nodded respectfully to Enzo as gates opened automatically for our passage. Finally, the villa came into view. A stunning 19th-century palazzo, nestled against the backdrop of distant mountains. My breath caught as Enzo drove through a final set of wrought iron gates toward a circular drive centered around an elaborate fountain. Good Lord, my father whispered. Your friend is royalty? Something like that, I murmured. Suddenly acutely aware I was still wearing my travel clothes, jeans and a wrinkled blouse, while Alessandro's parting words had been to wear the green dress. We exited the car into the warm Italian afternoon. The villa's massive doors opened before we reached them, revealing a striking woman in her 50s, elegant in a tailored black dress, her silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a severe bun. Miss Ellis, Mr. Ellis, she greeted us in accented English. I am Signora Rossi, Mr. Russo's housekeeper. Please, follow me. She led us through an entrance hall adorned with museum-quality Renaissance paintings and marble statuary into a sun-filled salon overlooking terraced gardens. You will stay in the East Wing, she informed us. Your luggage will be taken to your rooms. Mr. Russo requests you join him for dinner at 8. Her eyes lingered on my casual attire. I've taken the liberty of providing suitable evening wear. That's very kind. But I brought something, I said, thinking of the green dress. A knowing smile touched her lips. Of course. The green Valentino. I've had it pressed. She turned to my father. Mr. Ellis, I've selected several options for you as well. My father, overwhelmed but maintaining his composure, thanked her politely. When she departed, he turned to me with wide eyes. Sophie, who exactly is this friend? This house belongs in a historical documentary. It's complicated, Dad. Is he your... He hesitated, searching for the right word. Boyfriend? No. The denial came too quickly, too forcefully. He's just someone helping us. My father's expression said he didn't believe me for a second. A young maid appeared to show us to our rooms. Mine was larger than my entire Milan apartment, decorated in cream and gold with a balcony overlooking the lake. The green dress hung in the open wardrobe, alongside several other garments I'd never seen before, all exactly my size. On the bed lay a small box with a note. For tonight. A.R. Inside was a delicate diamond necklace that caught the light like captured stars. I snapped the box closed, suddenly afraid of what accepting such a gift might imply. After a luxurious bath in a tub large enough to swim in, I slipped into the green silk dress. It fit perfectly, highlighting curves I usually downplayed. The mirror reflected someone I barely recognized, a woman on the verge of something dangerous and transformative. Against my better judgment, I fastened the diamond necklace, its weight both foreign and thrilling, against my collarbone. At precisely 8 o'clock, another maid escorted my father and me downstairs. Dad looked distinguished in a tailored suit that fit as though made for him, which I realized it probably had been. You look beautiful, Pumpkin, he whispered as we descended the marble staircase. But I'm still waiting for a proper explanation. Later, I promised, though I had no idea what explanation could possibly encompass the reality of our situation. We were led to a formal dining room where Alessandro Russo stood waiting beside a table set for 3. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie. Seeing him again sent an involuntary flutter through my chest. In the restaurant, he'd been intimidating. Here, in his domain, he was magnificent. Power embodied in the casual confidence of his stance, the intensity of his dark eyes as they traveled from my face to the necklace at my throat, then down the length of the green dress. Sophie, he said, my name an intimate caress in his accent. You look exquisite. His gaze shifted to my father. And Mr. Ellis, welcome to my home. Mr. Russo. My father extended his hand, academic curiosity overriding caution. I'm grateful for your hospitality, though I admit I'm still unclear about the circumstances. Alessandro shook his hand, assessing him with the same penetrating gaze he'd used on me. Your daughter has explained the situation? Parts of it, Dad replied diplomatically. I gather my identity has been compromised. Indeed. Please sit. We'll discuss details over dinner. Throughout the impeccably served meal, each course more exquisite than the last, Alessandro explained the situation with surprising candor. He confirmed Daniel had stolen nearly 2 million euros using my father's identity, angering Carlo Bianchi, whom he described simply as a business rival with fewer scruples than myself. Until the matter is resolved, you'll both remain here under my protection, Alessandro concluded, signaling for dessert to be served. And how exactly will it be resolved? My father asked, the professor in him needing logical conclusions. Alessandro's eyes met mine briefly before answering. Your identities will be cleared. Compensation will be made to affected parties. The person responsible will be dealt with. Something in his tone made me shiver. Daniel will be arrested. A cold smile touched Alessandro's lips. Let's say he'll face appropriate consequences. My father, surprisingly perceptive, glanced between us. And what does my daughter have to do with any of this, Mr. Russo? Why involve yourself in our problems? The directness of the question created a charged silence. Alessandro took a measured sip of wine, his eyes never leaving mine as he answered. Your daughter made quite an impression, Mr. Ellis. His voice lowered. I protect what interests me. Heat rushed to my cheeks at the possessive implication. My father's eyebrows rose, but he merely nodded as though this confirmed a theory. After dinner, Alessandro invited my father to his library, where first editions filled floor-to-ceiling shelves. Dad, unable to resist such literary treasures, was instantly absorbed, giving Alessandro the opportunity to draw me onto the moonlit terrace. "You didn't wear the dress when you arrived," he said once we were alone. "I came straight from the airport," I replied, oddly defensive. "You said wear it when I arrived. I'm wearing it now." His lips curved slightly, so literal. His fingers reached up to touch the diamonds at my throat. "These suit you. I can't accept jewelry like this. You already have." His fingers traced the line where the necklace met my skin, sending electricity down my spine. "You wear my gifts well, Sophie." I stepped back, needing distance from his magnetic pull. "What happens now? How long will we stay here? Until I'm satisfied Bianchi no longer poses a threat." His eyes darkened. "It may be some time. His organization is persistent." "And Daniel?" Something dangerous flashed across Alessandro's expression. "You still care for him? After his betrayal?" "I don't," I said honestly. "But I don't want his death on my conscience either." Alessandro studied me for a long moment. "Your compassion is unusual in my world." He stepped closer, eliminating the distance I'd created. "Daniel Thomas will face financial ruin and legal consequences. Beyond that depends on his cooperation with certain authorities." Relief washed through me. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said quietly. "Your safety comes with conditions." My pulse quickened. "What conditions?" "You'll remain within the estate grounds unless accompanied by my security. You'll attend social functions as my companion when required, and—" his eyes hardened. "You'll never again look at another man the way you looked at Daniel." The proprietary tone sent conflicting waves of indignation and arousal through me. "I'm not your possession." "No?" His hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing my lower lip. "Then why are you wearing my diamonds? My dress? Sleeping under my roof? Because you've left me no choice. There are always choices, Sophie." His face lowered until his lips hovered near mine. "You could have run, gone to the police, disappeared with your father to some remote location." His breath warmed my lips. "Instead, you flew back to me, wearing my gifts, allowing me to claim you in all but the final way." My breath caught as his meaning registered. Before I could respond, he closed the minuscule distance, capturing my lips in a kiss that started gentle, but quickly blazed into something consuming. Without conscious thought, my hands gripped his shoulders, body arching into his as heat pooled low in my abdomen. He tasted of expensive wine and forbidden promises. When his arms encircled me, pulling me flush against his hard body, I moaned involuntarily into his mouth. The sound seemed to ignite something primal in him, his kiss deepening, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pressed against my lower back. The clearing of a throat broke us apart. We turned to find my father standing at the terrace door, expression carefully neutral. "Forgive the interruption," he said with the diplomatic tone he'd perfected during decades of academia. "I was just heading to bed and wanted to say goodnight." Alessandro stepped back, composure returning instantly, though his eyes still burned. "Of course. Signora Rossi will show you to your room." As if summoned by her name, the housekeeper appeared beside my father. After Dad kissed my cheek and whispered, "Be careful, Pumpkin." They departed, leaving Alessandro and me alone again in the moonlight. "This is madness," I whispered, fingers touching my still tingling lips. "Perhaps." His expression remained intense, possessive. "But it's a madness I intend to explore fully." He reached for my hand, bringing it to his lips. "Go to your father, Sophie. We have time." The promise in those words followed me upstairs, where my father waited outside my room. "Sophie," he said quietly, "do you know what you're doing?" I leaned against my door, overwhelmed by the events of the past few days. "No," I answered honestly, "but I don't think I can stop it." He studied me with the same thoughtful expression he'd worn when evaluating complex historical theories. "Just remember who you are," he finally said. "Ellis women have never been easily conquered. Not by Romans, Normans, or Italians with big houses and dark eyes." Despite everything, I laughed. "I'll remember." As I closed my bedroom door, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Flushed cheeks, swollen lips, diamonds glittering at my throat. I looked claimed, marked as Alessandro's without a single visible bruise. The woman in the reflection was a stranger, awakened to desires and possibilities I'd never acknowledged. I touched the necklace, remembering his words. "You wear my gifts well." The terrifying truth was that I wanted to wear more than his gifts. I wanted to wear his touch, his possession, his protection like armor against a world that had never seen me until he did. And that desire frightened me more than any threat Bianchi or Daniel could pose. Days at the estate settled into an unexpected rhythm. My father, ever the academic, spent hours in Alessandro's library, occasionally emerging with animated theories about obscure historical texts he'd discovered. His ability to compartmentalize the danger that had brought us here never ceased to amaze me. For my part, I found myself in a gilded cage, luxurious but confining. The grounds were extensive, featuring manicured gardens, a tennis court, indoor and outdoor pools, and even a small art gallery housing Alessandro's private collection. Yet the armed guards patrolling the perimeter served as constant reminders of our precarious situation. Alessandro himself remained an enigma. He left early most mornings for business in Milan and returned late, often joining us for dinner where he engaged my father in discussions about history, art, and philosophy. His knowledge surprised me. He was self-educated but impressively well-read, particularly in Italian Renaissance history and art, which happened to be my specialization. During those dinners, his eyes constantly returned to me, possessive and hungry, though he maintained a formal distance in my father's presence. The tension between us built with each passing day, amplified by the memory of our moonlit kiss. On the 5th evening, Alessandro arrived for dinner with news. "Bianchi's men were intercepted attempting to access your apartment in Milan," he informed me as we dined on the terrace. "They were looking for information about your father's finances." My father lowered his fork. "Were they dealt with?" A ghost of a smile touched Alessandro's lips. "They received appropriate discouragement." He turned to me. "Your gallery called. They're concerned about your absence." "I should contact them," I said, realizing I'd barely thought about my job. I took the liberty of arranging an extended leave of absence, family emergency. I stiffened. "Without consulting me?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Your safety requires discretion." "My safety doesn't require you controlling my life," I countered, frustrated by his high-handedness despite understanding the necessity. My father cleared his throat. "Perhaps I should retire early. The history of the Medici banking system has been quite engrossing." He stood, giving me a pointed look that clearly said, "Be careful." Once we were alone, Alessandro's demeanor shifted, intensity replacing the cordial mask he wore for my father's benefit. "You're angry," he observed. "You make decisions about my life without consulting me." He leaned back, studying me. "Would you prefer I let Bianchi's men find you? Allow your career to be compromised by unexplained absence?" "Of course not. But you could have told me first." "You're unaccustomed to protection," he said simply. "In my world, decisions must often be made quickly." "Your world," I repeated. "A world of what, exactly?" "You've never actually said." Alessandro's expression remained impassive, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Import-export businesses, property development, banking interests, and the other half of northern Italy's imports that no one talks about," I quoted Daniel's words from the restaurant. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Is it important that you know? If I'm living in your house, wearing your clothes, acting as your—" I hesitated, unsure what word could possibly encompass what I was becoming to him. "Mine," he supplied, the single syllable resonating with possession. "That's the word you're looking for, Sophie. You are becoming mine." Heat flooded my cheeks. "I don't belong to anyone." "No?" He rose, circling the table until he stood behind my chair. His hands came to rest on my shoulders, thumbs tracing my exposed skin. "Then why do you tremble when I touch you? Why do your pupils dilate when I enter a room?" I remained silent, unable to deny the physical evidence of my attraction. "I am what you suspect," he continued, bending until his lips brushed my ear. "I control territories, settle disputes, protect those under my care, and eliminate threats to my interests. Does that frighten you? It should have. Any sane woman would be terrified." Instead, I felt that same illicit thrill that had been building since our first encounter. "Yes," I admitted. but not in the way it should. His low chuckle vibrated against my skin. Good. Fear keeps you safe. Desire keeps you close. His fingers traced the line of my jaw, tilting my face up to his. And I want you very close, Sophie Ellis. The kiss that followed consumed me completely. Demanding and possessive, yet tinged with a tenderness that seemed at odds with his dangerous nature. I rose from my chair, turning in his arms as the kiss deepened, his hands spanning my waist before sliding lower to pull me against him. Tell me to stop, he murmured against my lips, and I will. But I couldn't form the words, didn't want to. 5 days of tension had created an ache I no longer wished to deny. Instead, I pressed closer, fingers tangling in his dark hair as I surrendered to the hunger between us. Alessandro lifted me effortlessly, settling me on the edge of the table as he stepped between my thighs. His lips trailed from my mouth to my neck, finding sensitive places that sent shivers cascading through my body. When he reached the hollow of my throat, he looked up, eyes dark with desire. Not here, he said, his accent thicker with emotion. Not like this, the first time. Before I could respond, a discreet cough interrupted us. We turned to find Enzo at the terrace doors, expression carefully blank. Forgive me, sir. The call you were expecting. Alessandro straightened, composure returning though his eyes remained heated. Take it in my study. I'll be there momentarily. Once Enzo departed, he cupped my face. This isn't finished, Sophie. I know, I whispered, both relieved and disappointed by the interruption. He pressed a final, surprisingly gentle kiss to my forehead. Rest. Tomorrow will bring changes. Those cryptic words proved prophetic. I awoke the next morning to find a formal dress, midnight blue with a plunging back, laid out with another jewelry box containing sapphire earrings. Signora Rossi informed me that Alessandro requested my presence at a charity gala in Milan that evening. Your first public appearance together, she added with knowing eyes. Very significant. The implication wasn't lost on me. Alessandro was officially claiming me as his companion, making a statement to his world. I should have objected to being displayed like a possession, but part of me, a part growing stronger daily, craved the public acknowledgement of whatever was developing between us. My father, surprisingly, seemed untroubled when I told him. I had a fascinating conversation with Alessandro about his family history yesterday, he said, adjusting his reading glasses. Did you know the Russos have controlled this region since before the unification of Italy? Dad, aren't you concerned about what he is? He looked up from his book. What he is, Pumpkin, is a man protecting my daughter from consequences I couldn't shield her from. His methods may be unorthodox, but his intentions seem clear. He removed his glasses. The question is whether you understand what you're agreeing to by attending this gala. I'm not sure I do, I admitted. In his world, public appearances make statements. You'll be declared as his, off limits to others. He studied me carefully. Is that what you want? I don't know, I answered honestly. But I'm tired of being invisible. He nodded as if this confirmed something. Just remember, you can leave any cage, no matter how gilded. Ellis women always find the key. That evening, Alessandro entered the grand foyer as I descended the staircase in the blue gown. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his dark hair slicked back, emphasizing the sharp angles of his face. For a moment, he simply stared, something akin to reverence passing over his features. Bellissima, he finally said, taking my hand to help me down the final steps. You'll outshine everyone, is that the point? I asked quietly, making a statement. His eyes gleamed with approval at my perception. Partly. Milan society needs to understand certain parameters. That I belong to you? I challenged, testing the boundaries of this arrangement. Instead of denying it, he lifted my hand to his lips. That you are under my protection, that anyone who threatens what is mine will face consequences. And what about what I want? His expression softened marginally. What do you want, Sophie? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Safety, yes. Protection for my father, certainly. But beyond that, the truth was both simple and terrifying. I wanted him. The danger, the intensity, The way he saw me when the rest of the world had always looked through me. "I want to understand what I'm walking into," I answered finally. A hint of respect flickered in his eyes. "Tonight, you'll meet people from my world. Business associates, allies, competitors. Some will be curious, others resentful. Follow my lead, stay close, and remember that appearances matter." His thumb caressed my wrist. "Can you do that?" I nodded, suddenly aware we were discussing far more than one evening's event. This was the threshold of a new life, one where I would either adapt to Alessandro's world or be consumed by it. The gala was held in a historic palazzo in central Milan, the entrance flanked by security personnel who nodded deferentially as Alessandro guided me inside, his hand possessively at my lower back. Heads turned as we entered the grand ballroom, conversations pausing momentarily before resuming with increased intensity. "They're all looking at us," I whispered. "At you," he corrected, satisfaction evident in his tone. "They wonder who captured my attention so completely." Throughout the evening, a parade of Milan's elite approached, men kissing my hand with calculated assessment in their eyes, women embracing me with air kisses and razor-sharp scrutiny. I recognized the performance for what it was, a dance of power and alliance, with me as the unexpected new player. Alessandro never left my side, introducing me simply as Sophie Ellis, my companion, while his possessive stance communicated far more. I played my role instinctively, smiling politely while maintaining the slight reserve his world seemed to demand of its women. During a momentary lull, Alessandro guided me toward the balcony for fresh air. As we approached, I froze, recognizing a familiar profile among a group of businessmen, Daniel. He hadn't seen us yet, laughing too loudly at something, a champagne glass clutched in his hand. He looked thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, but very much alive and free, not facing the consequences Alessandro had implied. Alessandro's hand tightened on my waist as he followed my gaze. "Ah, an unexpected guest. You said he would face consequences," I whispered. "He has. Financial ruin, blacklisting from legitimate banking." Alessandro's voice remained conversational, though his eyes hardened. "His current freedom is temporary." Before I could respond, Daniel turned and saw us. Color drained from his face, champagne sloshing over his hand as he took an involuntary step backward. Then, astonishingly, he composed himself and started toward us. "He's coming over," I said, anxiety spiking. "Why would he?" "Because he's a fool," Alessandro
Stay beside
replied
me.
calmly. Daniel reached us, artificial confidence barely masking his fear. "Sophie, and Mr. Russo. Quite a surprise seeing you together." "Is it?" Alessandro's tone carried lethal courtesy. "I believe we established certain boundaries at our last meeting." Daniel's smile faltered, "Just saying hello to my girlfriend. We had a misunderstanding, but I'm sure Sophie's ready to talk things through now." He reached for my hand. Alessandro moved so quickly I barely registered it, one moment standing beside me, the next directly between Daniel and myself, their faces inches apart. "Don't look at her again," Alessandro said, each word precise and deadly quiet. "Don't speak her name. Don't even think about her. Do you understand me?" Daniel paled further, but attempted bravado. "Sophie can make her own decisions." "Indeed she can," Alessandro agreed with terrifying pleasantness. "And she has decided you are nothing to her. Now, I suggest you leave this event before I reconsider my temporary leniency regarding your continued ability to draw breath." Something in his expression must have finally penetrated Daniel's denial. He stepped back, turning to me with desperate eyes. "Sophie, you can't be serious. This man is dangerous. Whatever he's told you, I know exactly who he is," I interrupted, surprised by my own calm. "And I know exactly who you are, Daniel. A thief and a liar who would have sacrificed my father to save himself." I moved to Alessandro's side, allowing his arm to encircle my waist. "Don't ever approach me again." Daniel's face contorted with disbelief as he finally recognized the truth. I had chosen Alessandro, danger and all, over the false security he had offered. As security personnel materialized to escort Daniel out, Alessandro bent to whisper in my ear. That was unexpected and quite arousing. Heat flooded my cheeks. I meant what I said. I know, he replied, his hand splaying possessively against my back. Which is why we're leaving. Now, the drive back to the estate passed in charged silence, tension building with each mile. When we finally arrived, Alessandro dismissed the driver and security with a curt nod before taking my hand and leading me not to the main house, but toward a separate structure nestled among gardens. My private quarters, he explained, as we approached the elegant modern building, more secure, more private. Inside, the space reflected Alessandro himself. Minimalist luxury, masculine but refined, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the moonlit lake. He released my hand only to pour 2 glasses of whiskey, offering one to me. For courage? I asked, accepting the glass. For clarity, he countered. I want no misunderstanding between us about what happens next. I took a sip, letting the liquid warm my throat. And what happens next? Alessandro set his glass down, moving closer until he stood directly before me. That depends entirely on you, Sophie. If you stay tonight, you're choosing my world, with all its complications and dangers. His fingers traced the line of my jaw. If you walk back to the main house, we continue as we have been, and nothing changes. Until when? Until Bianchi is no longer a threat? Then what? Then you would be free to leave. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Though I would hope you might choose to stay. I set my glass beside his. What if I want both? Your protection and my freedom. A smile touched his lips. Negotiating with me already? His expression grew serious. I can offer safety, luxury, passion, but complete freedom is not something anyone in my world possesses. There will always be limitations, always be enemies. And if those limitations become chains? His hands came to rest on my shoulders, thumbs caressing the bare skin exposed by my dress. Then you would find, Sophie Ellis, that I would rather let you go than see you caged. He bent until his lips nearly touched mine. But tonight, I don't want to let you go. The honesty in those words, the vulnerability beneath the power, decided me. I closed the remaining distance, pressing my lips to his in silent answer. Alessandro responded instantly, gathering me against him as the kiss deepened from question to claim. His hands found the zipper at my back, slowly lowering it as I worked the buttons of his shirt. Each layer removed was another boundary crossed, another step into his world. When he finally lifted me, carrying me to his bedroom, I understood I was crossing a threshold that would forever change my life. Yet as he laid me on black silk sheets, his eyes dark with desire and something deeper, more permanent, I couldn't bring myself to regret the choice. Mine, he whispered against my skin, the word both question and declaration. Yours, I answered, surrendering to the safety of his dangerous embrace. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows when I awoke the next morning, momentarily disoriented by unfamiliar surroundings. The memories of the previous night flooded back as I felt Alessandro's arm draped possessively across my waist, his body curved protectively around mine. In sleep, his face lost some of its hardness, revealing the man beneath the power and control. I studied him, marveling at how completely my life had transformed in just over a week. From gallery curator to... what? Mistress of a Mafia boss? The thought should have horrified me. Instead, I felt an unexpected peace. For the first time in my life, I was fully seen, fully protected, even if that protection came with gilded constraints. As if sensing my scrutiny, Alessandro's eyes opened, instantly alert. His gaze softened as he took in my expression. Regrets? He asked, voice husky from sleep. Surprisingly, no, I answered honestly. His lips curved into a rare, genuine smile as he pulled me closer. Good, because I have no intention of letting you go. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver through me, part thrill, part warning. Alessandro, we need to talk about what happens next. He propped himself on one elbow, dark eyes studying me. I assumed last night made that clear. Physically, yes, I acknowledged, heat rising to my cheeks at the memory of his hands, his mouth, the ways he'd claimed me repeatedly throughout the night. But practically, my father can't stay here forever. Neither can I. I have a career, a life. Something hardened in his expression. Your life is in danger, Sophie. Bianchi knows you're connected to me now. That makes you both a target and a protection. What does that mean? It means he won't harm you because it would trigger war between our organizations. But he would still use you to get to me if given the opportunity. His fingers traced my collarbone absently. Your gallery position is unfortunately no longer viable. The casual way he dismissed my career ignited a spark of defiance. You can't just decide that. I already have, he replied, sitting up. Alternative arrangements are being made. I pulled the sheet around me, suddenly conscious of my nakedness and vulnerability. What alternative arrangements? The gallery in the East Wing needs a curator. The collection has been neglected for years. He reached for his robe, shrugging it on as he rose. It would give you purpose while remaining within secure boundaries. A gilded cage is still a cage, I said quietly. Alessandro paused, studying me with those penetrating eyes. Is that how you see it? A cage? What would you call it when I can't leave the grounds without armed guards? When you make unilateral decisions about my future. He sat on the edge of the bed, expression unreadable. I call it protection, necessary precaution. For how long? A month? A year? Forever? Something vulnerable flashed across his face before his usual mask of control returned. Until I eliminate the threat. And when will that be? When Bianchi is no longer in a position to harm what's mine. The deadly certainty in his voice sent a chill through me. You're talking about killing him, I stated. Not a question. Alessandro's expression didn't change. I'm talking about ensuring your safety by whatever means necessary. The reality of his world crashed over me. Violence and power inseparable from the passion and protection he offered. Part of me had known, of course, but facing it directly in the morning light forced a reckoning I'd avoided. I need time, I said finally. This is all happening so fast. To my surprise, he nodded. Take the day. Think about what you want. He stood, moving toward the bathroom. But remember, Sophie, the choice isn't between danger and safety. It's between facing danger alone or with me beside you. After he left to handle business matters, I returned to the main house, finding my father in the gardens with a book. His knowing look as I approached in yesterday's evening dress made me blush, despite being a grown woman. I was wondering when you'd return, he said mildly, marking his page. Dad, He held up a hand. You don't need to explain. I may be old, but I'm not blind. He patted the bench beside him. The question is whether you understand what you've committed to. I sat, suddenly exhausted. I'm not sure I do. He wants me to stay here permanently, to give up my career. And what do you want? I hesitated, sorting through my jumbled emotions. I want him. But I also want my freedom, my identity. Dad nodded thoughtfully. You know, your mother faced a similar choice. I looked up, surprised. What do you mean? When we met, I was researching political movements in northern Italy. Got myself in trouble with some powerful people. Your mother was from a connected family, not like Alessandro, but with ties to certain interests. He smiled at my shocked expression. She protected me, used her family connections to get me out safely. Mom was connected to the Mafia. I couldn't hide my disbelief, tangentially. Point is, she chose to leave that world for me, for the freedom of academic life in England. He took my hand. But she never regretted her origins, or denied that part of herself. What are you saying, Dad? I'm saying choices aren't always either or. Your mother found a middle path, kept her connections while building a life outside their direct control. He squeezed my hand. If you love this man, and I think you do, then find your terms. Alessandro Russo strikes me as someone who respects strength. He's used to complete control. Then be the exception. Dad's eyes twinkled. Ellis women always are. I spent the day wandering the estate grounds, thinking about my father's words and examining my feelings for Alessandro. By evening, I had reached a decision, though uncertainty still fluttered in my chest as I dressed for dinner. When I entered the dining room, I found Alessandro already seated, tension evident in the set of his shoulders. His eyes tracked my entrance, hungry and possessive, yet tinged with something that looked surprisingly like fear. My father discreetly excused himself after the first course, claiming fatigue, though his pointed look made clear he was giving us privacy. Once alone, Alessandro spoke first. "Have you made your decision?" "I have terms," I replied, surprising myself with my steady voice. His eyebrows rose fractionally, a glimmer of respect, perhaps even admiration, warming his gaze. "Terms? If I'm to be part of your world, I need certain freedoms." I took a deep breath, channeling generations of Ellis women's strength. "I'll curate your collection, but I also want to work with museums in Milan, under appropriate security, of course." "Possible, but risky," he assessed. "What else?" "My father returns to London with protection you provide once the immediate threat has passed." Alessandro nodded slowly. "Reasonable. And I need honesty." I met his gaze directly. "No decisions about my life without consulting me. No secrets about dangers that affect me." His expression tightened. "My world requires discretion, Sophie. I'm not asking for operational details of your business. I'm asking for partnership." I leaned forward. "If I'm yours, then you're mine too. That's how this works." Something powerful flashed in his eyes. Surprise, desire, "You continue to respect mingling," he said quietly. "Few would dare negotiate terms." "I'm not negotiating," I clarified. "I'm telling you what I need to stay willingly." A slow smile spread across his face, genuine, transformative. "And if I agree to these terms, what are you offering in return?" I held his gaze steadily. "Everything else. My loyalty, my body, my heart, if you want it." The vulnerability in those last words hung between us. Alessandro rose, circling the table until he stood before my chair. He knelt, a gesture so unexpected from this powerful man that my breath caught. "Your heart," he repeated, taking my hands in his. "That's the only term I require, Sophie Ellis. The rest we can arrange." Relief and something deeper flooded through me as he pulled me into his arms, sealing our agreement with a kiss that promised both passion and partnership. 3 months later, the exclusive gallery opening in central Milan buzzed with Milan's elite, all vying for a glimpse of the Renaissance masterpieces I'd curated from Alessandro's private collection. Shadows and Light, Hidden Treasures of Northern Italy marked my official debut in Milan's art world, under my professional name, with no public connection to Alessandro Russo, beyond his listed contribution as a primary lender. I circulated among guests, discussing brush techniques and historical contexts, acutely aware of the 2 security men who maintained a discreet distance. My father stood near a particularly fine Caravaggio, deep in conversation with the director of the Uffizi, who had traveled from Florence specifically for the exhibition. "Your father seems to be enjoying himself." Alessandro's voice came from behind me, sending a familiar thrill down my spine. I turned to find him immaculate in a tailored suit, his public persona firmly in place, though his eyes softened as they met mine. "He's in academic heaven," I agreed. "The director just invited him to give a guest lecture series in Florence. With appropriate security arrangements, of course," Alessandro added, a subtle reminder of the boundaries that still existed. "Of course." I nodded toward a painting across the room, a small but exquisite Madonna and Child. "The Alberti museum director is practically salivating over that piece." "Perhaps we should consider a long-term loan," Alessandro suggested, his hand finding the small of my back. "A gesture of goodwill to the city." The "we" warmed me, evidence of our evolving partnership. Over the past months, Alessandro had surprised me by adapting to my terms more readily than I'd expected. While I remained within his protection, the cage had expanded, allowing me to breathe while still keeping me safe. Carlo Bianchi had been found dead 6 weeks earlier, his body discovered in his Lake Como villa after what authorities ruled a heart attack. Neither Alessandro nor I spoke about the convenient timing. Maintaining the careful separation between aspects of his business I preferred not to know, and our personal life. "Alessandro," a voice interrupted my thoughts. We turned to find Daniel, shockingly gaunt, but dressed in an attempt at his former elegance. Alessandro's body tensed beside me, his expression cooling to dangerous levels. "You were not invited." Daniel raised his hands placatingly. "I only came to congratulate Sophie on the exhibition. Professional courtesy." "You have 3 seconds," Alessandro stated flatly. "Please." Daniel's voice cracked with desperation. "I'm leaving for Rome tomorrow. New job, new start. Just wanted to say goodbye to Sophie." Before Alessandro could respond, I laid a restraining hand on his arm. "1 minute," I said to Daniel. In full view of the gallery, Alessandro's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head slightly, respecting my decision, while his eyes promised consequences if Daniel overstepped. I moved a few paces away, still within Alessandro's sight but offering the illusion of privacy. "You look well," Daniel said, his eyes nervously darting to Alessandro. "Happy." "I am," I confirmed. "I heard about your father's apartment in London being broken into." His voice lowered. "That was Bianchi's men, wasn't it? Before he died." I kept my expression neutral. Ancient history now. Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Sophie. For everything. I never meant to put you in danger. But you did," I stated simply. "Actions have consequences, Daniel. I'm learning that." He glanced at Alessandro, fear evident in his posture. "Is he good to you, at least?" The question was so incongruous I nearly laughed. "Better than you ever were," I answered honestly. "Goodbye, Daniel. I hope Rome works out for you." As he slunk away, Alessandro appeared at my side, his arm sliding possessively around my waist. "You're too forgiving," he murmured. "Not forgiveness. Closure," I corrected, leaning into him. "He's nothing to me now." Satisfaction gleamed in Alessandro's eyes as he bent to brush a discreet kiss against my temple. "The exhibition is a triumph. You've impressed some very important people tonight." "Including you?" I teased. "You impressed me the moment you walked into that private dining room covered in marinara sauce," he replied, his voice lowering. "But yes, especially tonight. Seeing you in your element, confident, commanding, it makes me want to take you home immediately." Heat bloomed across my skin. "We can't leave yet. I have to give the closing remarks. After then," he promised, eyes darkening with intent. "I have something for you at home." The something proved to be a small velvet box presented in his private quarters after we returned to the estate. Inside nestled a ring, an emerald surrounded by diamonds, elegant yet substantial. "Alessandro," I breathed, understanding its significance. "We've done this backward," he said, taking the ring from the box. "First protection, then passion, then partnership." He met my eyes, vulnerability visible beneath his usual control. "Now I'm asking for permanence." "People will talk," I said softly. "The Mafia boss and the curator, let them," he replied, certainty in his tone. "I've never cared for others' opinions. I care only for what is mine." His expression softened. "For who is mine?" "And I'm yours," I acknowledged, extending my left hand. "As I am yours," he answered, sliding the ring onto my finger. "On your terms, Sophie Ellis. Always on your terms." As he sealed the promise with a kiss, I realized the cage I'd feared had transformed into something else entirely. Not walls to contain me, but boundaries to protect what we'd built together. I had entered Alessandro's dangerous world and found not captivity, but a place where I was finally, completely seen. My father was right. Ellis women always found a way to turn gilded cages into something of their own design, and in Alessandro Russo's arms, I had found not just protection or passion, but a partnership of equals. Different in power, perhaps, but matched in strength and determination. "Mine," Alessandro whispered against my lips, the word both possession and surrender. "Yours," I answered, knowing it was both truth and choice. "Always yours."